Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for inviting me to come out today. This is a wonderful venue, delicious spaghetti, and also really just great citizens. And so I thank you for your interest. When I first heard about this forum from John, I just knew I wanted to get to it. That was a few months ago, so here we are today with just a few weeks a few weeks before the election. So my name is Ellen Rosenblum, and I'm running to be your next Attorney General. I never planned on being a politician, but when this office came open, people encouraged me to run because they knew that I could be counted on to step up and stand up for the people of Oregon. They knew I'd bring toughness, tempered by a well-honed sense of fairness and ethics to the job, based on what they knew about me and my experience. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. Oregon is my home. I've lived here over 40 years. This is where my husband, Richard, and I met, married, and raised our family. We have 2 children, Kate and Will. Kate's a second-year medical student at Oregon Health Sciences University, and Will actually did my website. He's a very creative young man and is now a brand strategist down in San Francisco. I'm proud of both of them. I studied both as an undergraduate and went to law school at the University of Oregon. So I am a double duck and very proud of that fact. My husband and I love to attend football games, and of course we have our duck regalia. I have a little shrine to the ducks in my bathroom, in fact. But I want you to all know that I have a beaver on my staff too. So always very fair-minded. I've spent my entire career in Oregon as a lawyer and a prosecutor and a judge for the past 36 years. So I graduated from law school in 1975 and practiced all the way through since then. And as far back as law school, and maybe even before, as the second of 8 children, I was always looking out for and advocating for the most vulnerable in our communities, particularly for our consumers in the sense of consumer protection. In fact, in law school, rather than going out for law review, which is a good thing, but I was more of an activist even back then, and so I went out for OSBRG, the Public Interest Research Group, and I did consumer investigations and research studies, and then I used that to go to the legislature to work on issues involving landlord-tenant law, what we used to call long-term health spa contracts, which were a big ripoff and still sometimes are, and prescription drug issues, particularly generic drug substitution laws. That was a big part of my research back then. And then as a lawyer, when I went into practice in a small firm in Eugene, I practiced law on behalf of children, small business owners, and working men and women primarily. I even took criminal appointments. In fact, that's how I really got my feet wet in the courtroom, was that in those days in Eugene, there wasn't yet a public defender. And so, along with many other lawyers, I took court appointments so that I could represent people who didn't have funds to hire their own lawyer, and particular children in juvenile court and families as well, to address the issues of abuse and neglect that so pervade, unfortunately, our most vulnerable families. I even handled a case when I was in private practice for Ken Kesey over a contract dispute with the producers of the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You remember that movie was filmed in Salem at the Oregon State Hospital. Well, Ken had sold his rights to the movie and the book, it turned out, and we helped him get a pretty big settlement from the big producers down in LA. So that was kind of my career case in private practice. And then I went into the United States Attorney's Office, the same office that my opponent has worked at for the last 8 years here in Oregon. I worked in that same office for 8 years in the 1980s as an assistant United States attorney, as a federal prosecutor. And I took on financial fraud and other major criminal cases. I had one career case there, which was I prosecuted a foreign steel company that was engaging in customs fraud and selling steel here illegally in the United States and undermining our U.S. markets in steel, violating something called the trigger price mechanism. And we discovered this conduct right here at the Port of Portland in Oregon. The company was lying on customs forms at the port in order to get its steel in the country for less than they were permitted to sell it for. I turned that case into a national investigation with convictions against the company, and eventually, after I went on the bench, the Department of Justice in Washington was able to get the largest civil penalties ever against that company for its conduct. As it turned out, it was doing the same thing at ports all over the country. I also, when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, prosecuted violent crimes like bank robberies and extortionists. I prosecuted a school board member who was working on the side as an extortionist, who had set a pipe bomb in an elderly couple's bedroom. And fortunately, they were safe, but they didn't even owe the debt that he claimed that they owed. So I had some pretty wild cases when I was back in the U.S. Attorney's Office and was very successful. Also worked in the area of wildlife enforcement. That was one of my particular assignments. And then as a judge for the past 22 years, I presided over cases involving thousands of Oregonians, from small claims court and traffic court to major criminal trials and even products liability cases. In that role, I had the honor each day of doing work for justice for the people of Oregon. I served for 16 years as a trial judge in Multnomah County on the circuit court, and then for 6 years, the past 6 years, as a member of the Oregon Court of Appeals, the busiest people's appellate court in the country. So as a judge, you see people at some of the most difficult times of their lives, obviously, and it was my job as a judge to consider both sides of the arguments that were presented in each case and to apply the rules fairly, since that's what judges do. And I know the importance our state courts play in the lives of Oregonians, including protecting children from abuse and neglect, protecting and pursuing child support from irresponsible parents. That's a big part of what the Attorney General's office does. Half of the 1,200 employees of the Attorney General's office work in the area of collecting child support. That's how important that is. As those of us who practice in Oregon's state court system know, our judges hardly sit on the sidelines. In fact, we are very active in the community, and I have been the leader of that charge. I've been tremendously active over the course of my career in the community. I started a program called Girl Scouts Beyond Bars for girls who get to now go visit their moms on Saturday mornings at the Coffee Creek Correctional Institute. Dysfunctional situations that finally they're getting to have the opportunity to be in an environment where they can get to know their mom and actually maybe have some semblance of a relationship when their moms are released from prison. I started the Citizens Justice Conference here in Oregon. That was a tri-county conference that included the community colleges and the League of Women Voters. I started the Jury Reform Project and the Jury Appreciation Day to thank our jurors for the incredible service that they give. I worked on an interdisciplinary rule of law project that brought people together from all disciplines, not just judges and lawyers, but everyone, to learn about the rule of law and how important it is to the work that we all do. So those are the kinds of things I've done throughout my career. Over the past couple of years, even while I was on the Court of Appeals, which is, as I said, quite a job, I worked as the chair of a national diversity commission, producing a report called The Next Steps for Diversity in the Legal Profession, which is being used throughout the country today. So today, I'm running to be the people's attorney, having been the people's judge. I'll protect Oregon's children from abuse and neglect as your attorney general. I'll prosecute sexual predators, make sure our families have the child support they need to thrive. I'll protect our families and seniors from scammers, abusive mortgage practices, identity thieves, and polluters and consumer ripoffs. Our seniors in particular need that protection. They're the most vulnerable, they're the most gullible. I'm even one of them, and I'm pretty gullible, but I know that there are a lot more people out there who are even more gullible than I am who need our protection. Seniors and homeowners are easy targets in today's economic climate. So I'm willing to take on powerful interests and stand up for consumers and help small businesses to make sure they're treated fairly. I want those who are abiding by the laws to benefit, and I want those who are not to be accountable. And as the first woman attorney general our state's ever had, I'll fight for women, protecting our reproductive rights and our health care. And I'll protect our most vulnerable who are victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. We need to make sure that they get compensated by the Attorney General's Victims' Compensation Fund so that they can rebuild their lives. And that's what I mean when I say that I'll be the people's attorney and I will stand up for the people of our state every single day. And that's why I'm running to be your next Attorney General. I'm honored to have the wonderful support of many of our government leaders, many of our political leaders, our business leaders, and a huge swath of our legal community. I have over 1,000 individual contributors. I have the support of Dave Frohnmeyer and Hardy Myers, Governor Barbara Roberts, former U.S. attorneys Charlie Turner and Chris Olson, who actually never agreed on very much, but they agree on me. So I'm just really, really honored. I have the support of many organizations. AFSCME, which is an important labor union that actually includes the lawyers at the Department of Justice. And they see me as their future leader. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I hope to have your support, and I really appreciate this wonderful audience.